So I'm Marissa. I'm another Otago graduate. I have a PhD in pharmacology that I got quite a few years ago now. And since then, I've been working in the commercial world. So I've worked a variety of roles, really only working at 2 companies. I was at AD Instruments. Some of you might have used their software, their hardware, if you've done any physiology labs in your undergraduate, like your first couple of years. So they make hardware and software for research and education. So I worked on the education side of the business. I worked as an instructional designer, developing like educational materials for laboratories for sort of like first year, second year students, and also online learning materials to supplement that. I also worked from there, jumped into like a team leadership role, so I managed a bunch of instructional designers, developing all that stuff, and then I worked as a product manager as well. And then about 1.5 years ago, I decided it was time for a change, so I fell into medical writing. And most people, it seems, do kind of fall into medical writing. No one knows that medical writing is a thing until they find themselves actually doing the job. But everyone seems to have the same story of how they ended up as a medical writer. So most people have a PhD, not all, there's some masters around as well, mostly PhDs, and generally people who have, during their PhD or their postdoc, decided research isn't really for me. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to stay in the lab, but I want to use the skills and expertise that I gained during all those years and apply them and still stay in science, somehow connected to science. And so they find that medical writing is a good fit. It tends to attract people who like learning new things, people who, when they think back about their undergraduate, postgraduate experiences, the things that stood out that they enjoyed were perhaps being a lab demonstrator and teaching scientific ideas to students. These are people who like reading literature and wrapping their head around a different concept, people who actually enjoyed writing their thesis. You will like medical writing if you're one of those people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Kainic. So we were founded 2012 by Blair. So Blair is another Otago graduate. He also has a PhD in pharmacology. He then decided he didn't want to be a researcher, so he went and studied law, and then decided that wasn't for him either. Went over to the UK to get some experience and fell into medical writing and stayed there for several years, gaining experience and working his way up different agencies. And then him and his wife decided that they wanted to start a family, so they came back, and he started working as a freelance medical writer. And a lot of medical writers do this. They work their way up for a few years, getting some experience, and then decide to go freelance because you can do the job from anywhere. And there's one person, I think, who just sails around the world with her family, just doing their occasional freelance job when she gets internet and then sails off somewhere else. So it can be really flexible, and people like that about it. So he came back, started Kainic, working on his own. He's then grown the team. So there's 5 of us, so we're a very small team. We've got him as the managing director. We've got an admin who helps out with billing, and then we've got 3 full-time writers, and I'm one of those. And so what we do is provide freelance medical writing support. So essentially, if you think at the top, you've got your pharmaceutical companies, and every year they're pumping out a ton of research, and that research needs to be communicated to different stakeholders, because you've got the scientific academic community, you've got your healthcare professionals like doctors and nurses, you've got regulatory bodies like the FDA, and patients. And so all of those audiences have an interest in the research that's coming out, and it needs to be, or the communications need to be tailored for each of those audiences. And so generally to do that, your big pharma companies will engage with a medical communications agency, and they'll help deliver or develop a plan about who are you going to communicate what and to who and to when you're going to do that. But often they find themselves in a little bit of a tight spot where they don't have enough internal resource to actually execute on all of the different communications that have got to go out. So that's when they call in the freelancers. So we're often brought in at crunch times on projects where there's a lot of panic going on. Everyone just wants to see something done. So it's a lot of overnight delivery of things, and it's really, really variable. Every client and every project is different. So it might be that you jump on a project for an hour. It might just be checking some slides that someone's going to present at a conference, or it might be a couple of weeks helping out with a manuscript and perhaps helping the authors deal with reviewer comments and resubmitting. We might write like ads, like advertorial copy. It could be like flip charts that a doctor's going to use when they sit down with a patient and talk through a condition and the different treatments that are available. It could be website content that's designed for patients to jump online and get information that they can then go and talk to their doctor about. So really, really, really variable. So when we started out, we were just working with clients in the UK because that's where Blair had been, that's where he had his contacts. And now we are working, something's gone funny there. We're working across 11 different countries, and pretty much all of our clients are in the Northern Hemisphere. So an advantage for them is that at the end of their workday, they can go, oh my God, we're never going to get anything done. We're running out of time. And so they'll call us up, send it through at the end of their workday, and then we'll work hard during their night so that by the time they come back into the office in the morning, they've got something that they can look at and work to. So we work on about 300 different projects a year. And yeah, just really, really variable stuff. Everything is different. So you get quite good at being uncomfortable because by the time the brief comes in and you've had a look at what you've got to do that day, our clients are already offline, like they're in bed, sleeping. So you kind of just have to make the best decisions you can with the information you have because you can't just call them up and say, what do you mean about this and what do you want? And by the way, these files are missing. You just have to go with it and see what happens. So we are a very small team that's based in Dunedin. These are the top 20 selling drugs in the world, and we've helped with about 15 of these so far, so in some capacity. So it might have been with the manuscripts, or it might have been with conference slide presentations or posters, helping design those, just really, really variable stuff. So it's quite cool because you often will get to, sort of liaise or hear from some of the very best doctors in the world. There's people who are, designing the clinical trials and, publishing the results. And it's just pretty exciting. You get a sneak peek of what's coming out, what's going to happen next. Yeah, I think that's it. Very short and sweet.